So the question I'm kind of wanting to ask you all is in these slides, and it's basically, do we really want to keep doing this? This is the question, and here's how I see it. Basically, I think it was 95 or ancient history anyway. I was building some network, and I just wanted to look at how other people saw my routes. So Randy was kind enough to dump an eBGP multi-hop session on the 2500 or whatever I had in those days from May West. But time went by, we got more peers, researchers wanted the data out of the thing, we deployed more boxes in various locations, and all of a sudden RouteViews was this public utility, and there's 5 terabytes of data spinning in there, routing data going back to 1997 actually. And there was lots of support from all the communities of interest, all the operational community, researchers, NSF, U of O, on and on, Joel, Lucy, Hans, all of those people. I don't know. Let's see. However, I think things have really changed. Nowadays, there's a lot of this stuff out there, lots of servers, various types. I want to telnet somewhere and say show IBGP something somewhere, lots of that around. RouteViews has 2 of those and runs sort of a CLI on all the Zebra Quagga boxes, so you can do that on all those boxes too. There's the Riper there's all kinds of looking glasses, there's all kinds of tools like we'll hear about BGP Mon. But I think most importantly, I think that the substrate that we had for this thing at U of O has kind of crumbled a little bit. And, if we want, so my question to everyone here is, should we really keep this going? We have a couple more years of funding, and so we're okay with that, I think, for the short term anywhere. But, is there value? Do people find value in it? And thank you. Okay, so let me ask my next question. Are there enough other sources of the data? That's another one. And so my questions were really, we did this for a long time, and if the answer to the previous question was, nah, you guys just ought to shut it down, well, I guess that would be a fair thing, but I would wonder about this historical data, because someday I think it might be useful to somebody to look back and say, well, your data's not perfect, because in the early days we were just collecting show IP BGP, screen scraping, and people had built tools up around that, and then we went to MRT, and now we're going to go to XML. And so that stuff I thought was important, and maybe someday somebody would want that. But if so, then we need to, I think if we really want to keep this as a public utility that's sort of everybody's in some way, I think we need to think about that a little bit and start thinking about it now, because it's fairly fragile. I have to say it's fairly fragile. It's very thinly staffed, very thinly supported, and I don't know that U of O is going to be the place we can do it in the future. So if we do want to do that, and if you are interested in that, well, if you have opinions on this either way, please come and tell me about it. And otherwise, I did want to kind of get a feeling for people about where and how to continue in the most public sort of utility way we can with this, if we're going to. So, Jared.
Hi, Jared Mach, NTT America. So what do you need to keep this service going? I believe it's absolutely valuable to keep it up, keep the historical data available. Do you need disk? Do you need bandwidth? Do you need...
You need all of those things. But
do you just need humans to spend the time with stuff? Do you need people to...
You need all of those things, because, somebody asked me about this once, and I kind of characterized running the RouteViews thing as, it's sort of like you have all of the problems you have with if you're a service provider, but there's no data plane. It's all control plane, right? So that's what it's kind of like, So you have the operational aspects of that, but you also have to have some infrastructure, to support it. Like you were saying, you need disk, you need to buy new disks, you need to have, somebody to slap the new disks there. You need the rack space, all of that stuff.
Is this something that, money or collections or something that would help solve some of these problems?
I don't know if it's money. I think it's more like, well, I don't know what, if you mean cash money, I'm not sure it's that. If you mean resource, yeah. Like the ones I just mentioned.
Okay.
We can talk about it more offline. Joel.
Yeah, Joel Yeagley. So I worked on RouteViews for a couple of years. I guess I'm actually still working on it. But
Joel's responsible for most of the good stuff that happens with RouteViews, in case that wasn't clear.
Yeah, many people are responsible for good things that happen with RouteViews. And actually, really, what I wanted to say was, RouteViews has benefited tremendously from time and energy and resources that have been provided by this community. And you know, if I had a vision for the future of RouteViews, it would involve the community having even more investment in it rather than less. And I mean, because like I have a lot of emotional and investment and time that I put into RouteViews, and I think you know, people who leverage the facility should have that as well. I mean, because I've benefited tremendously from it.
Thanks. Ren.
RouteViews is a great trusted resource. Have you considered partnering with an exchange point operator like Switchin Data or Equinix so that they could co-locate it and they have staff that knows how to run similar services that's 24/7?
You know, I've thought about that, and I've even talked to a few people about it, but I'm actually acting on it right here, right now, right? So, you know, yes.
As a customer of the exchange points, I would pay additional to have the service available because my customers use it.
Thanks, that's good information.
Mohit Lad, UCLA. I'd like to provide a slightly different perspective to what's going on here. I started off as a PhD student in my first year, and I wasn't finding a right problem to work on. And then I found RouteViews. So I'm not trying to imply RouteViews is a problem, but a different perspective is that this should definitely go on, I think, and the reason being that a lot of PhD students out there are very close to getting their PhD. And if you take this source off, you're going to deprive them all the hard work. So I extend my full support to RouteViews, and thank you for everything you've done. Thanks.
Gotcha, that's a different perspective.
Hi, I'm Ricardo Oliveira, UCLA also.
Pardon me, I didn't catch your name.
Ricardo from UCLA.
Okay.
I'd like to extend my support to RouteViews also, and I would like to say that so far RouteViews is one of the most reliable sources for inferring internet topology. There are other projects around like Skitter from CADA, but we actually found some inaccuracies on their data, and so far the BGP data from RouteViews and RIPE are the most reliable for those purposes. So I think we should keep RouteViews going.
Thanks. There is one issue, I think maybe what Ricardo was alluding to was that there are a lot of things you can't discover in the control plane, like backup paths, right? And the Skitter folks were after trying to get that by using the data plane to find it. And one of the things we had thought about doing is kind of trying to expand ourselves a little bit and trying to use some of those kind of techniques to fill in that data, but we never got around to doing it. But anyway, so if you have other thoughts or anything like that on this, please contact me. I'm interested in what you're thinking. Dino?
Yeah.
Do you have to encapsulate before or after?
I think you should expand RouteViews and put it in more locations in the internet and maybe have it run IBGP among the different locations. I think it would be good to get different views depending on topology rather than, so expanding is, I'm for expanding it.
You're for expanding it.
Lucy Lynch, a former RouteViews participant when I was at the University of Oregon, and on the academic side, riffing off the students, there are no PhD candidates at the University of Oregon using RouteViews data, which is part of the problem. And part of the way to rebuild the infrastructure here is RouteViews gets used two ways. It gets used by operators in real time, and it gets used by researchers on those long delays on that data archive. The research community also needs to step up a little here, and there might be, we've begun to distribute it to some exchange points, and there are distributed RouteViews collectors now. There might be a way to also distribute the archive to some additional academic sites.
Thank you. He's.
I just wanted to mention that probably the biggest or the most difficult part of operating
Up the volume just a little.
Of operating RouteViews was really locations and people to be the remote hands when that was really required. So that's probably the biggest deficiency I would see in RouteViews in terms of we need more contribution in that area. The operation, of course, needs a little bit of help.
Yeah, the remote hands thing, definitely. My biggest concern, just in case it wasn't clear to people, is that the infrastructure that, that both, the management and intellectual infrastructure that was around U of O that allowed this all stuff to grow is not really there anymore. So it's a little bit difficult to operate it out of there.
Yes, Michael Moore from France Telecom R&D. I've been using RouteViews data extensively, and I share the point of view of PhD students, but I finished my PhD.
So if I shut it down, you're safe.
No, I would just put a remark on this. I think the RouteViews data is part of a global knowledge about how the internet topology looks like, even if we are not sure it's unbiased. But if RouteViews were not here, we could not read about that topology and understand, study it. So it's, from my point of view, it's so important to keep that.
Thank you. Done. Thanks.